You eat enough food, yet your cells behave like starving citizens behind sealed metabolic gates. This contradiction feels unsettling because effort increased while energy availability mysteriously declined. Most people blame calories, willpower, or aging, but biology points elsewhere entirely. The real issue is not food quantity, but whether insulin can still deliver energy. Insulin is a silent courier carrying glucose toward cells that once welcomed it easily. Over years of overload, that welcome fades and doors slowly corrode shut. Cells stop responding, not out of rebellion, but self-protection against constant biochemical noise. You feel sleepy after meals, heavy in thought, dulled instead of nourished. This is not overeating. It is failed energy communication at the cellular border. At the microscopic level, insulin resistance begins with disrupted receptor phosphorylation signaling. Normally, insulin binds its receptor, triggering a cascade that opens glucose transport channels. Chronic inflammation interrupts this cascade, breaking the signal before delivery completes. Glucose accumulates outside cells, while mitochondria wait idly inside. Abundance exists, yet access is denied, creating a paradoxical state of internal famine. Here comes the uncomfortable truth, rarely discussed in nutrition conversations. When insulin sensitivity starts returning, the system becomes fragile, not instantly resilient. This recovery window demands precision, not restriction or aggressive dietary punishment. Eating less does not fix broken signaling. It often worsens cellular distrust. Cells under repair interpret scarcity as danger, reinforcing defensive metabolic patterns. What they require instead are foods that restore communication, not stimulate spikes. Think of insulin receptors like rusted hinges, not broken locks. Force bends metal. Proper chemistry dissolves corrosion patiently over time. This reframes food from fuel into information during metabolic recovery phases. Certain nutrients act like molecular lubricants, easing receptors back into responsiveness. Others provoke noise, reopening inflammation and re-locking doors prematurely. This is why many people relapse just as improvement begins. They remove calories, not interference, exhausting systems already struggling to reconnect. Biology never heals through punishment. It heals through correct signals delivered consistently. When insulin starts working again, cells listen carefully to every metabolic message. Wrong foods shout urgency. Right foods speak calmly and clearly. Understanding this moment changes how you approach eating forever. Before naming specific foods, you must recognize this hidden transition phase. Because timing determines whether healing accelerates or quietly collapses again. If meals often leave you tired despite adequate sleep, this applies directly to you. Your cells are not lazy. They are locked behind protective logic. And locked systems reopen through chemistry, not discipline. If this perspective feels uncomfortably accurate, acknowledge it deliberately, like this video, and comment, "I am listening," if you are ready to reopen cellular doors. Long before diabetes appears, the pancreas quietly compensates for signals cells refuse to receive. Each missed signal forces beta cells to work harder, secreting insulin with diminishing returns. This silent overwork continues for years, often unnoticed, until exhaustion becomes irreversible. Here lies the fear most people sense, but rarely articulate clearly. Micronutrient deficiency turns insulin resistance from inconvenience into progressive cellular damage. Among all nutrients, 2 minerals quietly determine whether insulin signaling survives or collapses. Chromium and magnesium operate backstage, rarely celebrated, yet absolutely decisive. Chromium's role begins where insulin meets its receptor on the cellular surface. Inside cells, chromium forms chromodulin, a compound strengthening insulin receptor binding efficiency. Without sufficient chromium, insulin knocks, but doors respond weakly or inconsistently. The pancreas compensates by producing more insulin, accelerating beta cell fatigue silently. This mechanism was uncovered while researchers traced insulin resistance beyond glucose intake alone. Magnesium enters the story deeper, at the level of enzymatic activation. Over 300 enzymes depend on magnesium, including those transporting glucose intracellularly. Without magnesium, glucose transporters stall, even when insulin signaling partially recovers. Energy remains stranded, while cells signal hunger, despite circulating abundance. This explains why blood sugar may improve slightly, yet fatigue persists stubbornly. Food choices now become strategic, not simply nutritional. Broccoli concentrates chromium in a biologically available matrix, refined by evolution. Grass-fed beef liver supplies chromium, alongside cofactors supporting hepatic insulin metabolism. Magnesium-rich foods tell a parallel story of cellular cooperation. Dark leafy greens deliver magnesium within chlorophyll structures, supporting mitochondrial efficiency. Nuts and seeds provide magnesium buffered by fats that slow digestive absorption. This prevents spikes, aligning mineral delivery with insulin's recovering sensitivity. The danger appears when minerals remain absent during recovery phases. Pancreatic stress continues, even while diets appear superficially improved. People blame carbohydrates, ignoring missing molecular facilitators of glucose handling. This misunderstanding delays healing while reinforcing unnecessary dietary fear. Minerals do not lower glucose directly. They restore communication pathways. They teach insulin receptors how to listen again. This distinction separates symptom management from genuine metabolic repair. However, minerals alone do not complete the story. They unlock doors, but other agents determine who approaches those doors. In the next section, you will meet gatekeepers controlling glucose entry speed. They decide whether carbohydrates behave like threats or manageable guests. Understanding them changes how you view vinegar, spices, and digestion itself. Because sometimes stabilization comes not from removal, but intelligent delay. Once insulin signaling softens back into responsiveness, digestion becomes the next decisive battlefield. Blood sugar spikes are not created only by carbohydrates, but by the speed of their arrival. Your body tolerates glucose calmly when it enters gradually, predictably, without triggering alarms. Problems arise when digestion floods the bloodstream faster than cells can respond cooperatively. This is where two ancient agents step forward as metabolic gatekeepers. Apple cider vinegar and cinnamon operate not as nutrients, but as biochemical regulators. Their power lies in timing, not calories, sweetness, or macronutrient ratios. Vinegar introduces acetic acid, a compound with specific effects on digestive enzymes. Acetic acid temporarily inhibits alpha amylase, the enzyme breaking starch into simple sugars. This slows carbohydrate breakdown before glucose even reaches the bloodstream. As a result, post-meal blood sugar rises gently instead of spiking abruptly. Cells receive glucose in manageable waves, matching insulin's renewed signaling capacity. This mechanism was clarified when researchers studied fermented foods and postprandial glucose curves. Cinnamon works differently, operating inside cells rather than within digestion itself. Its polyphenols activate insulin signaling pathways, enhancing receptor responsiveness subtly. In effect, cinnamon mimics insulin's message without increasing insulin secretion. This reduces demand on the pancreas while improving cellular glucose uptake efficiency. Together, vinegar slows entry while cinnamon improves reception. This pairing transforms carbohydrates from metabolic threats into negotiable energy sources. Here lies a critical misunderstanding that traps many well-intentioned people. They eliminate carbohydrates entirely, fearing damage during insulin recovery phases. But removal teaches nothing. Regulation retrains the system intelligently. Gatekeepers do not ban guests. They manage the doorway. However, wisdom requires respecting delivery methods as much as mechanisms. Drinking vinegar undiluted damages enamel and irritates delicate esophageal tissue. Biology rewards context, not extremism, disguised as discipline. Using vinegar within salads or diluted preparations preserves benefit without collateral harm. Cinnamon, similarly, should support meals, not replace balanced dietary structure. Excessive supplementation ignores synergy and risks unnecessary strain. These tools function best as subtle modifiers, not aggressive interventions. Their effectiveness depends entirely on insulin already beginning to listen again. Used too early, they mask symptoms without repairing underlying resistance. Used appropriately, they reinforce stability during a fragile transition window. This is why timing defines whether strategies heal or merely control. Gatekeepers teach patience, rhythm, and respect for digestive pacing. They remind you that blood sugar is not a number, but a narrative, a story shaped by speed, signaling, and cellular trust. Next, we must address what fuels the brain when insulin still regains confidence. Because recovery requires energy, yet not all energy demands insulin's permission. In the next chapter, you will meet alternative fuels and protective compounds. They sustain clarity while reducing pressure on healing metabolic pathways. This is where hope must be balanced carefully with caution, because support can heal, but excess can overwhelm recovering systems. As insulin sensitivity returns, the liver enters a delicate phase, requiring strategic metabolic patience. Pushing glucose aggressively now can overwhelm pathways, still repairing intracellular communication networks. Yet, the brain still demands reliable energy to maintain focus, mood, and cognitive stability. This creates a temporary paradox. Energy is needed, but insulin should not be pressured. Nature solved this long ago through alternative fuels bypassing insulin-dependent entry points. Medium-chain triglycerides provide such fuel, entering mitochondria without insulin's explicit permission. Avocados and coconut oil contain these fats in forms evolution already tested extensively. MCTs convert rapidly into ketones, supplying neurons with immediate, clean burning energy. This spares glucose pathways, while insulin receptors regain trust and responsiveness. Many people experience mental clarity here, mistaking it for stimulant-like effects. In reality, the brain finally receives fuel without hormonal negotiation or resistance. However, energy alone does not complete recovery without cellular protection. Previous blood sugar instability leaves behind oxidative stress within vulnerable tissues. This is where polyphenols quietly intervene as biochemical shields. Berries concentrate these compounds, refined through plants' own survival strategies. Blueberries and strawberries deliver polyphenols that neutralize free radicals efficiently. They protect cell membranes and insulin, signaling proteins from oxidative interference. This matters because healing receptors remain sensitive to inflammatory disruption. Polyphenols do not lower glucose directly. They preserve the environment where healing continues. Together, MCTs fuel while polyphenols protect, reducing pressure on insulin entirely. This combination offers stability without demanding premature metabolic performance. But here lies an important medical caution that cannot be ignored responsibly. Fats are powerful signals, and excessive intake burdens certain vulnerable metabolic systems. Individuals with advanced fatty liver disease require careful portion control. Overloading fats can worsen hepatic stress, despite insulin improvements elsewhere. Similarly, lipid metabolism disorders demand professional guidance before increasing fat intake. Supportive does not mean unlimited, especially during recovery phases. Biology prefers moderation, delivered consistently, not enthusiasm, delivered recklessly. This is why these foods function as tools, not dietary identities. They bridge energy gaps, while insulin signaling repairs underlying pathways. Used wisely, they reduce cravings driven by unstable brain fuel availability. Used carelessly, they create new imbalances, while old ones heal incompletely. This chapter teaches restraint alongside hope, because repair is not acceleration. You are supporting systems under construction, not testing finished performance. The goal here is stability, clarity, and reduced metabolic noise. Once insulin confidence strengthens, flexibility naturally increases without force. But before that stage arrives, the gut must be addressed honestly, because insulin does not act alone. It follows signals originating far deeper. In the next section, you will see why blood sugar decisions begin in intestines, and why fiber and microbes quietly conduct the metabolic orchestra. This is where many are surprised, and some are challenged uncomfortably, because the pancreas often obeys the gut, not the other way around. Most people believe blood sugar lives and dies by the pancreas alone. This belief feels logical, yet physiology quietly tells a very different story. Long before insulin responds, the gut decides how glucose will be handled. Your intestines are not passive tubes. They are endocrine decision-making organs. They release hormones that instruct insulin how aggressively to act. This is where the paradox becomes deeply uncomfortable for many disciplined eaters. Blood sugar control often fails despite perfect meals, because gut signaling remains impaired. Soluble fiber becomes the first messenger capable of repairing this broken conversation. Asparagus, legumes, and beans deliver fibers that resist digestion intentionally. These fibers reach the colon intact, where microbes transform them metabolically. Beneficial bacteria ferment fiber into short-chain fatty acids, known as SCFAs. SCFAs are not waste. They are signaling molecules with systemic authority. They stimulate release of GLP-1, a hormone stabilizing blood sugar naturally. GLP-1 slows gastric emptying, reducing glucose spikes without forcing insulin output. It also improves insulin sensitivity while protecting pancreatic beta cells. This hormone explains why some diets work briefly, then mysteriously stop working. Without fiber-fed microbes, GLP-1 signaling collapses quietly over time. Probiotic foods now enter the story as microbial reinforcements. Kimchi and natto introduce strains that support fermentation efficiency. They increase SCFA production without demanding dietary extremes. However, this pathway carries a warning many people ignore painfully. Sensitive guts respond aggressively when fiber increases too rapidly. People with IBS may experience bloating, cramps, and distress initially. This reaction is not failure. It is microbial imbalance being exposed. Starting slowly allows ecosystems to adapt rather than revolt defensively. More fiber is not better. Appropriate fiber is better. Gut healing rewards patience more than enthusiasm. When microbes stabilize, insulin behavior improves without conscious effort. Cravings soften, energy steadies, and glucose patterns calm organically. This transformation feels anticlimactic, which is why it is often dismissed. But quiet stability is the signature of real metabolic repair. You are not hacking blood sugar, you are restoring internal governance. The gut now participates actively, reducing pressure on insulin entirely. This cooperation marks a turning point most people never recognize. Because healing rarely announces itself with dramatic sensations, it whispers through consistency, predictability, and reduced internal friction. With gut signals restored, the system becomes ready for long-term recalibration. In the final chapter, we will follow this process across 30 days. You will see how consistency reshapes markers, not through force, but alignment, because recovery is not a heroic sprint. It is a negotiated peace. And peace is exactly what metabolic systems were designed to protect. After 30 days, your body no longer responds to food the same way. This change is subtle, unfolding beneath symptoms, measurements, and impatient expectations. Blood sugar does not drop dramatically overnight. It stabilizes gradually, then predictably. This is the signature of repair, not temporary control. Inside cells, insulin receptors regain responsiveness through repeated calm biochemical interactions. Glucose enters without resistance, reducing the need for excessive insulin secretion. Over time, average blood sugar markers begin reflecting this restored cooperation. HbA1c, a 3-month memory of glucose exposure, slowly shifts in a healthier direction. Not because you starved, but because signaling pathways stopped misfiring constantly. This is the difference between suppression and reprogramming. Your pancreas relaxes, beta cells face less demand, and exhaustion risk declines. The liver processes fuel with greater clarity, no longer overwhelmed by constant correction. Cravings lose urgency, because energy delivery finally matches cellular expectations. This is when discipline feels unnecessary, replaced by internal agreement. Food stops acting like a trigger and starts behaving like information again. You begin noticing patterns, which meals energize, which create heaviness, which feel neutral. This awareness is not obsession, it is metabolic literacy developing naturally. Personalized health emerges here, not from rules, but from feedback loops. You stop copying plans and start observing responses. This is where medicine becomes individual, not ideological. No universal diet survives contact with personal biology. What survives is understanding how signals interact within your specific system. This approach protects you from extremes masquerading as solutions. Moderation keeps you safe, but intelligent choices move healing forward. This is why food quality matters more during recovery than restriction ever did. Your body is not broken, it was misinformed for too long. Now, each meal teaches it something different. Consistency rewires expectations at the cellular level. Over time, resilience replaces vigilance, and effort becomes unnecessary. This is not a finish line, it is a stable baseline. From here, flexibility increases naturally without metabolic consequences. You are no longer managing blood sugar, you are cooperating with it. This cooperation is the real success most people never reach. If this journey reshaped how you see food, pause and acknowledge it. Like this video, if understanding biology matters more than chasing quick fixes. Subscribe for future explorations grounded in mechanisms, not marketing. And share in the comments which signal surprised you most during this process. Your experience may help someone else recognize healing already beginning quietly. Because recovery often starts before confidence catches up, and awareness is the first nutrient biology truly recognizes.